Hey GenderqueerChat viewers, Christina here. It is barely Wednesday, and by the time I upload this, I'm sure it'll be Thursday, so I apologize to Ricky and Matt for kind of stealing their day. But, yeah, the topic this week has been making a mini sort of presentation to grade 9'ers, so 14, 15-year-olds, and yeah, which I do remember being 14, 15. I do remember grade 9, so hopefully I can do this adequately. Joe made, a fabulous, all-encompassing, comprehensive video about being genderqueer and gender and basics of sexuality and sort of that sort of thing. So, yeah, if you haven't watched it, watch Joe's video because it is excellent. A little bit long, but totally worth it. So, Jay showed us the genderbread person, version 2.0, and I just happened to find earlier today, before I even watched Jay's video, version 3.1. So, I will briefly show this. The only difference, I think, in terms of this new-ish model, well, new, but, you know, not much has changed, is the distinction between sexual attraction and romantic attraction, which, again, isn't really, you know, a part of gender anyways, but, yeah. So that's about it. I mean, I could go into detail of where I fit on there, but that's I've talked enough about my own gender identity in previous videos. So, the distinction between sexual attraction and romantic attraction being that mainly that asexual people can be romantically attracted to a certain sex. They may want to get involved in a relationship with whoever. However, they don't necessarily, and if they're asexual, they wouldn't want to actually have sexual activities. But, you know, everybody's different, so you'd have to ask the person as an individual. But basically, asexual people can be romantically attracted to certain people. However, there are also people who are not romantically attracted to anybody or sexually attracted to anybody, so I guess that would be aromantic. Yes. So, yeah, that is the definition for that. What could I say about gender to 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds? The basics, you know, usually when I try to describe what genderqueer means to someone else, the first question I ask is, do you know what transgender means, or do you know what transsexual means? And then from there, I go on to say, why is my screen flickering? Okay, anyways, something is strange. Maybe that'll help? I don't know. Strange. Maybe it's just my computer. I don't know. Anyways, so that's the first question I ask, and I go on to say that if they know what transgender means, then I will explain, well, instead of just transitioning from, you know, one side to the other, you don't identify as either male or female, which has already been said. It's genderqueer umbrella term for anybody who doesn't identify as strictly male or strictly female. So, I personally liked exploring Wikipedia in terms of when I first found all these terms. And so, you know, the whole definitions of genderqueer for people who identify as both male or female, neither male or female, or somewhere completely off the gender spectrum. Yeah, so, yeah, I quite liked Wikipedia, and there's tons of other terms there, of course, of different labels that anybody can have. Bigender, agender, is there like pan and polygender? I don't know. There's tons of different things. Androgyne, you know, Two-Spirit for First Nations people. You know, there's different Hira or something. I don't know. I don't pronounce things properly. For East Indians, I think. I'm not going to comment on what I don't know about, obviously. But yeah, I mean, there's tons of different words for a third gender in other cultures too. So that's all listed on Wikipedia, which is pretty cool. Oh, I will put up a link for this if you guys are interested in their newest version of the genderbread person. And apparently the person who made this is making a book about it as well. So, and you can donate, which, you know, you don't have to do, but I'm just saying, there is a link for it, and I'll put it down below. And, hey, I have this now. I downloaded it onto my computer, which is why I was able to print it, obviously. So, not obviously, but anyways, I will put up a picture, if I can, just right now in the video, so you guys can look at it and whatever. So, that'll be now. Of course, explaining gender to grade 9s, you always, and to anyone, really, you have to make a distinction between gender and sex and sexual orientation. Those are three very distinct things. You know, you have your biological sex, and you can't assume somebody's gender from their biological sex, necessarily. Or their sexual orientation, because, you know, Joe is genderqueer and is attracted to men, and I know one of my closer friends is a gay trans man. So, you know, people say, like, why would you transition if you're just gonna be gay? That, like, why wouldn't you just stay as a straight woman? Well, it's obviously not like that. Of course, you have to talk about the issue of pronouns, which Joe covered great. I like the idea of purposely using the wrong pronoun for the male teacher. That was cool. Yeah, so, you know, there's he, she, they, and then some other pronouns that people have made up for gender-neutral pronouns, which can be used, and the idea, of course, to tell these grade 9s, please respect them. Just like, please respect the person's chosen name. Please don't use their birth name if they don't want you to use their birth name, because you are invalidating their gender identity, and it's disrespectful and not cool. So, yeah, I mean, if your name was Christopher, see, here's the thing. My dad sometimes calls me Chrissy. That's beside the point. But let's say your name was Christopher and you were a guy and you were called Chrissy, I don't think you'd be too happy about it. So, even though technically, hey, you could shorten Christopher to Chrissy, why not? But it sounds feminine, so don't use it. Right? Similar aspect. Similar deal. In terms of don't use somebody's birth name if they don't want you to use it, because it just doesn't reflect their gender identity. In Alberta, where I am, grade 9 is still a part of junior high, and junior high sucked for me. So, just saying that, you know, you gotta reinforce the whole, okay, respect people. Please respect people of different gender identities, if they identify as genderqueer or whatever, if they're transgender, which I think is an umbrella term, I think, of anybody who fits not with... Oh yeah, and then of course you have to explain cisgender versus transgender. You know, cisgender being that your gender identity is congruent with your biological sex, and gender role, I guess, yeah. And transgender being that your your gender identity is not incongruent with your biological sex. And of course, your gender presentation or gender expression doesn't necessarily have to match your gender identity. I probably feel a little bit more female than I look. I like looking really masculine, but I have feminine qualities to my personality, so. You can mention, of course, that they're intersex people, and that biological sex itself is not always binary, and that, I mean, you could get into the theories. I mean, nobody knows really exactly how gender identity, or for that matter, sexual orientation develop, but there are theories of biological actual differences between, for example, trans men and cis females. There are some differences in the brain, in that sometimes, in certain ways, trans men's brains resemble cis males' brains more. Same with trans women and cis females. And, you know, there are some theories on how sexual orientation develops in the brain, but it's all theories for now. So, and as Joe mentioned, this channel, GenderqueerChat, is a good resource for learning about being genderqueer and gender and that sort of thing. It's pretty cool. And I mean, there are other websites to help you connect with other genderqueer people if that is an issue of yours. If you are genderqueer, obviously. For example, I would consider Tumblr a pretty decent place to connect with other non-binary genderqueer individuals. And yeah, I mean, just look up genderqueer on the internet. Like I said, Wikipedia was good for me. Hopefully somewhere you can meet other genderqueer people locally, if there is like an LGBT youth group that you go to. There might be some genderqueer people in that, or a GSA or something like that. I should also mention that it is definitely always an option if you feel like you are transgender, genderqueer, what have you. There are options for hormones, surgery, what have you. You can talk to a therapist about these things. Hopefully you can talk to your school counselor about these things, although they may not be all that knowledgeable about it, because, let's be honest, it's not, that widespread of a thing that not everybody knows about it, right? Not everybody is fully educated on the subject. So, yeah, but there are options, and you don't have to feel bad about wanting to take hormones or whatever. Like, it is a possibility. If you want to go down that route, perfectly okay, and go for it. Although, hormones and surgery do have some irreversible changes, so you might want to be careful with what you choose, but yeah. I'm sure your therapist can deal with that a lot better than I can. So, yeah. And going along with that, of course, is the concept of dysphoria, which I forgot to mention. Specifically, in this case, gender dysphoria, of not feeling like the parts that you have, the body that you have, is really you. And that can be a very, very, very uncomfortable feeling. So, yeah, I think that would be something that would have to be touched upon in talking to the grade 9s. So there's really not much else new that I can contribute to this topic. I think Joe pretty much covered it entirely. Yeah, the main thing new that I can add onto Jay's video is just, not just Genderbread Person 2.0, but Genderbread Person 3.1, which, is not that different, but anyway. Whatevs, I'll put the link for it down below, and I hope you guys got something out of this, and I will catch you all next week. See ya.